My name's Mike. I've been a project manager in the IT world mostly for 20 years, mostly working in government areas, federal government and state government. I've also worked in defence contractors and private companies as well, and also not-for-profit. So you've just started out in project management and you want some extra tips on how to get it right. Either you've just got qualifications or you've just started your first few projects and you're a bit shaky, a bit nervous about what to get right. And there's lots and lots of material out there, lots of books, and the courses available are great. They've taught you the basics of project management. But I'm here to tell you from the other side, 20 years down the track, what do I see as the main lessons where people still get it wrong? I've worked with other project managers, some who have really haven't been successful, or those where I've been brought in as a project rescue, basically, to fix up where things have gone significantly wrong. So there's a number of points here which I'd like to talk through, and at the end I'll give you some extra information you can look up. One of the key things really throughout all of it is that you must communicate with people well. If you're not communicating because you're new or you're nervous or perhaps you think you're bothering them or something like that, then you need to overcome that, because people don't mind if you ask extra questions about details, whether it's technical aspects of the project, the work that's actually being done, or whether it's relating to scope, risk, budget, the schedule. There might be some things in there that you think, they've got some, your client might have some preconceived ideas as to how long it's going to take or what milestones. You've looked at it and you thought, actually, that's not reasonable, or it's going to take longer, or what's more is you might look at it and say, well, why is there such a huge gap in here? And there's things that they haven't told you. Maybe there's a key employee who's going to be on leave, or there's timing requirements regarding budgets that you haven't been told about. So when you're putting all this together, you really need to understand what's going on with the project. It doesn't work if you start out and you follow what they say without really understanding what the project is about. I was lucky in the sense that I had 20 plus years of technical experience as a programmer and developer, leading teams, leading software development, computer systems engineers, solution architect, running teams of solution architects and things before I got into the project management side of things. So I've got a good understanding of the technical basis of things, whether it's networking or software systems or technologies or and things like that. So if you're just starting out, that's going to be a bit hard to get on top of that stuff. Now, it's a bit of a fake it till you make it in terms of some of those things. People will give you numbers on how long it'll take to do things, and you'll just have to take it for granted that they know what they're talking about. But you'll learn. But that key bit is that communication with people. That is critical for getting things right. A second key point that I would make is risks. And in that you've been taught all about risks, you've read about them in books and what to do. What I see people do, though, is so often, even experienced project managers, is they set up their risks at the beginning of the project. They don't look at them very often. They don't address them, adjust them. And then something gets out of hand and it turns out the risks are out of date, or they haven't been notifying management of those risks on a regular basis, and then something comes up and surprises you. Management and the people you're reporting to, your clients, don't have a problem if there's risks and you've been tracking them and you've been updating likelihoods, or you've had some mitigation strategies that are in place, so there's no surprises. But if a risk comes up as a surprise and you didn't have it covered, then that's a problem and it doesn't look good for you. Look, and it's fine if there's risks and you've asked about it and your clients or the project team didn't tell you about it, and it's just completely come out of the blue that, say your vendors suddenly decided to take all the resources off and put them on another project, which was extremely unlikely, and you're not going to cover that in your normal risks because it's unlikely that that's going to happen if you've got a contract with a vendor to do some work. It does happen, or like what people have, accidents or get really sick, or, a relative dies and they suddenly have to go away at a critical time. These things do happen, and you're not going to get blamed for that. And likewise, every single project that you do, you're not put down like, okay, well, this person could get sick or a relative die. This person could get sick or a relative die. You're just not going to do all those mundane kinds of risks. That there's a flood or there's an earthquake. You just don't do that unless it pertains to your particular project, and those things are actually likely to happen if it's an engineering project, perhaps in the jungles of Papua New Guinea, and earthquakes are likely, floods are likely, attacks from the local natives are likely, all sorts of issues like that come up. But for your average IT project manager, it's just not an issue. You don't put those down, but you must regularly check those risks, update them. Some risks will have an end date. Well, you can remove those then and say, we've passed a certain point, that risk hasn't been realised. Excellent stuff. You're doing your job. But I'm just telling you about things where I've seen even experienced project managers get hurt by just not taking these things into account. Probably the third main one that I see is project teams. Meeting regularly and including all the necessary people. You might get told when you start on a project that these are the people working on the project. And as time goes by, you might find there's other critical people that should be there. Include them in your teams. Depending on what kind of a project is, quite often if you're meeting, say if it's a waterfall project or a semi-agile project, you might be meeting once or twice a week with the team. You don't necessarily have to take minutes on those and write them up and share it with everyone, but certainly taking notes of that meeting or getting some software to record the notes and then come up with bullet points. But the key thing is action items. You don't want to be going to meetings week after week after week and someone either wasn't there or didn't do anything about their action items and nothing has happened. So whilst you might not have formal meeting minutes for your project team, of course you'll have formal meeting minutes if it's reporting to a board or a steering committee. But for your project team and the people actually participating, the developers, your business analysts, and these kinds of people, the representative from vendors if they're involved or other outside contractors or parties, you'll be meeting with them regularly, probably weekly, maybe more often. You might even have stand-ups. But for those kind of weekly kind of meetings, you must ensure that you have them. If people are away, you still have the meetings. If there's holidays coming up and people are going to be on vacation or whatever, still have those meetings. If there are key people who are sick, still have the meetings. So it's important that people know the meetings happen, whether they're there or not. And if they're not there, they're going to miss out and they need to catch up. And whilst it might be you catching up with them to make sure they know what needs to be done, you don't want people getting slack in the team and then not getting things done and then actions don't happen and then you end up going week by week and everybody gets bored because nothing's actually happening with the project. Now, of course, if you're stuck in a particular phase, for instance, it was some new software system that you're installing and you've gone out to vendors, you've had all their tender applications in, you reviewed them, you've selected the key one, and now it might be off to a acquisition team to negotiate the actual contract, or your finance team might be negotiating a contract with the vendor, which might take weeks, but it can take months. I've worked on some big projects where it's taken 12 months to negotiate contracts with the vendor because they have to line it up with their correct resources. They might have to get interstate or overseas people to negotiate on prices if you want special pricing for some reason. Maybe it's the first of several projects. There's all sorts of reasons why contract negotiation can take a long time. That can lead to all sorts of other problems, which I might talk about in a later video. But nevertheless, you need to continue to have meetings through that period. Even at worst, cut it back to, once a fortnight or something like that. And even if it's fast. So you have that meeting, it's locked in people's calendars once every fortnight then instead of weekly or bi-weekly. You have that meeting. It might only go 5 minutes to say, I've talked to the guys in acquisition and contracts. The negotiations are still going with the vendor. There's some key problems that can happen there, which I will talk about later. But as time goes by, especially if too much time goes by. I'll put together a number of points like these that I've learned over the years, some through my own mistakes and getting things wrong and some hard lessons about what to do. I'll put that into an ebook, which I'll put the link into the description, and you can get that. And that really has the distillation of those essential items that I've learned over time, which is key for, especially when you're starting out. And there's so many books about project management and IT project management that can tell you what to do and what software to use and how to make your Gantt charts and things like that. And if there's any questions that people have, do put them down in the comments below, and I'll be very happy to address those in subsequent videos. I've got a number of other things that I'd like to talk about in detail in terms of I want to talk about actually how you record your issues and your risks and your action items and your decisions, how maybe some templates for doing that, and some key lessons from specific projects that have gone massively wrong and some specific projects that have gone massively right and what was required to do that or turn around projects that were going badly. There's always particulars in terms of people issues with projects. Do have a look at that link below back in the next video to talk more about project management.